Hey, Dostie here with what's probably the final view for winter of 2022. Um, it's mid-April, and a lot of you have probably already, you're maybe planning your last ski trip to a resort, but you're ready to shift gears and do something else, which okay, that's cool. Personally, this it's now spring. It's time for spring skiing, and I love it. For me, this is when I really, I go into overdrive for skiing because everything prior to this for me is preparation for spring ski touring season. And even though it hasn't been a really big year anywhere in the US for any length of time, certain places have had their moments, right? But no one has had a particularly stellar year for at least for snow depth. All right. Um, and honestly, I'm getting really tired of skiing hardpack at the resorts because that's mostly what it's been, and that's mostly what it is. And being a telemark skier, um, hardpack isn't that great for telemark turns. Telemark is really shines in soft snow. I mean, I got hooked on telemarking when I had an epic powder day, and I may have told you about that before, and I'm not going to get into it right now. There's no point. Okay, but here's the thing: a lot of you are ready to hang it up. Okay, that's cool. We'll see you next year. But I think this is the perfect time, especially if you've been considering getting in the backcountry. Now's the time to do it. Why? Because it's spring. Well, spring is when it's warm. Yeah, that's when the snowpack becomes safe generally because it's warm, and so the snowpack settles, gets more cohesive, and the probability of avalanches goes down to slim or none. That doesn't mean that it still couldn't happen, but it's less likely. The other great thing about it being warm is in the winter anyway, if I'm touring, I'll go to the summit, rip my skins, and head down because usually it's colder at the top. It tends to be windy, and I don't like freezing at the top. I like to relax in comfort. And the beauty of spring touring, it's comfortable almost all the time, almost anywhere, unless it happens to be a windy day. And then, of course, you, as usual, you want to look for places to switch gears, relax, have lunch that are out of the wind behind the trees, or maybe down at the bottom at the trailhead. And a lot of times it'll be really mellow back at your car, and not so mellow at the top, even in the spring. Okay. So, one of the great things about spring touring is tailgate parties. I was just at Winter Park the other day, one of probably one of, if not the last resort day I'm going to have this year. And I was amazed at how many people were set up having tailgate parties. It looked really great. And I wish I'd known some of the people. I probably could have gotten away with just introducing myself and joining the party. So that's one of the things that I really like about spring touring is it's warmer. You also need fewer layers. Um, Here's the other thing. Okay, a lot of you are hanging up your skis. Well, that means it's less crowded. And if there's one thing I think we can all agree on, um, skiing is a lot more fun when there's fewer people. Now, of course, we need lots of people to be skiing to keep the lifts rolling, but you don't need a lot of people skiing in the backcountry. And the fewer people there are in the backcountry, the less crowded it is, the more you get to enjoy one of the benefits of backcountry skiing, and that's a little solitude, just you and a band of friends and no one else, or very few other people. So that's one of the main things I like. Um, Now, a lot of you are not really enamored with spring skiing because you don't like skiing slush. Well, okay, fair. You got to have good wax for that. You got to, actually, I like skiing slush because it's kind of like skiing powder. It's good training for powder, but I'll admit, it is less forgiving. You make any mistakes in slush, you're going down, okay? But if you can handle slush and mush, powder is a piece of cake. And this is the other thing that a lot of people don't realize. Um, in the spring, storms still come in. And I find that at least half my days spring touring, I get powder turns. I mean, I went out 2 weeks ago, and I'll show you right here. Um, I'll zoom in on the camera, but those are powder tracks. I was not expecting powder. I was hoping for corn, expecting slush because it didn't arrive at the trailhead early. Um, but we'd gotten some snow 3 or 4 days earlier. It had stayed cool. And while it wasn't blower over the head snow, it was soft, cold. It was pow. Last year, um, the general avalanche conditions throughout most of the season here in Colorado were sketchy, okay? And so everyone was spooked. A lot of people, unfortunately, lost their lives, like maybe no, it was more than half a dozen. There was a 2-week stretch where 18 people died in avalanches throughout the West, Colorado, Utah, even California, okay? But then once we got past the vernal equinox and the days are longer and temperatures are generally warmer, there was a big storm that came in early March, and it was like a coastal storm. It was warm and heavy, but it finished with a soft powder finish, okay, on top. And so coming in warm and wet, it bonded to what existed. It was prodigious. So it had a lot of mass, and it mashed down all those spooky layers that were underneath. And then it finished cold, and there was powder on top. And I remember going to one of my favorite locations, which actually is pretty prone to taking people out with avalanches. And everyone was operating in standard Colorado mode and avoiding what to me were the best lines, which are ordinarily avalanche prone. But since we had a completely transformed spring snowpack, everything was open. And so I was able to make turns in places that most people were afraid to touch because they didn't understand that the snowpack had transformed. They were just in standard Colorado mode of it's spooky. Well, in the spring, a lot of times it's not. And I think that's one of the major benefits. And if you haven't gone backcountry skiing, but you want to, but you're worried about the dangers are a lot less in the spring, and it's a really good time to hone your mountaineering skills, your uphill skills, just your general mountain awareness. And like I said, there's a good chance you'll still get powder, but if you get powder, generally it bonds and it's not going to rip on you. So you get to enjoy POW, and it's less crowded. So you're not competing for fresh tracks. So those are all my reasons, and there's others, okay? But those are the main reasons why I think spring touring is awesome. And I encourage you to get out there, earn your turns, and until next year, spread Telemark. See ya.